Hello and welcome everyone. Is my voice clear and audible?
Good evening.
Good evening. Okay, so is my voice clear and audible?
Yes,
Okay, so we'll begin with a short meditation. Let's just sit back and relax. Withdraw your attention from the outside world and bring it to yourself. Imagine yourself standing at the edge of a river, watching the water flow by. Each moment, the water changes, yet the river remains. Just like the river, our lives are constantly in motion. Thoughts, emotions, and experiences arise and pass away. Bring your attention to your breath, feeling the sensation of the air moving in and out of your body. Imagine any thoughts or worries as leaves floating on the surface of the river, gently drifting away. Remember, the present moment is not something to be achieved, but rather something to be revealed. It's already here, waiting for us to arrive. So let go of the past, let go of the future, and simply be. Thank you so much. Okay, so hello and welcome. So we've just completed the book Being Love, which was by BK Sister Shivani, which was a beautiful book. Um, so now we are starting with our new book, which is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. In which is all about the transformative power of living in the present, how important it is to stay in the present and let go of past and future, break free from the constraints of our mind, discover our true self, our inner peace, our purpose, experiencing happiness, fulfillment. That's what it's all about. So we're going to start with that today. So we are all really excited for this. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen with you. Just give me a moment. Okay, so we're going to start with the first chapter, which is You Are Not Your Mind. Okay, the greatest obstacle to enlightenment. So in this, it's basically a conversation between the seeker and the author. The seeker who's seeking, what enlightenment is, he's got all these questions that he's asking the author. So the author is answering the question. So the seeker is asking enlightenment. What is that? So the author is saying, a beggar had been sitting by the side of a road for over 30 years. One day, a stranger walked by. Spare some change, mumbled the beggar, mechanically holding out his old baseball cap. I have nothing to give you, said the stranger. Then he asked, what's that you are sitting on? Nothing, replied the beggar. Just an old box. I have been sitting on it for as long as I can remember. तो इसमें ऑथर ने समझाया है वो एक बेगर की बात कर रहे हैं जो बहुत सालों से एक साइड ऑफ द रोड पे बैठा हुआ था तो एक दिन एक स्ट्रेंजर पास बाय करता है और वो पूछ उसको ना बेगर कहता है गिव मी सम चेंज तो स्ट्रेंजर कहता है मेरे पास कुछ है नहीं देने के लिए तो फिर वो बेगर पूछता है कि व्हाट्स दैट यू आर सिटिंग ऑन तो जो आता है वो कहता है कि इट्स जस्ट एन ओल्ड बॉक्स आई बीन जो बेगर है वो कहता है कि इट्स जस्ट एन ओल्ड बॉक्स आई हैव बीन सिटिंग ऑन इट फॉर एज लॉन्ग एज आई रिमेम्बर तो स्ट्रेंजर पूछता है कि एवर लुक्ड इनसाइड कि उसमें है क्या तो बेगर कहता है नो नो सेड द बेगर व्हाट्स द पॉइंट देयर इज नथिंग इन देयर हैव अ लुक इनसाइड insisted the stranger. The beggar managed to pry open the lid. With astonishment, disbelief, and elation, he saw that the box was filled with gold. मतलब इसमें ऑथर समझा रहे हैं कि एक एग्जांपल दे रहे हैं कि वो बेगर एक बॉक्स ऑफ गोल्ड पे कितने सालों से बैठा होता है और वो कभी उसको खोल के देखता नहीं है कि उसमें है क्या तो the author is saying, I am that stranger who has nothing to give you and who is telling you to look inside. Not inside any box, as in the parable, but somewhere even closer, inside yourself. तो उन्होंने जैसे एग्जाम्पल दिया है कि द बॉक्स वाज फुल ऑफ गोल्ड तो ऑथर कह रहा है मैं वो स्ट्रेंजर ही हूँ और वी आर दोज बेगर्स हु हैव नॉट लुक्ड इनसाइड अस तो वो समझा रहे हैं कि मेरे पास देने के लिए कुछ नहीं है बट मैं सिर्फ ये कह रहा हूँ कि आप अपने अंदर देखिए कोई बॉक्स में नहीं देखना समथिंग इवन क्लोजर विच इज इनसाइड योर सेल्फ बट आई एम नॉट अ बेगर आई कैन हियर यू से और हम क्या बोलेंगे कि हम तो बेगर्स नहीं हैं those who have not found their true wealth, which is the radiant joy of being and the deep, unshakable peace that comes with it, are beggars, even if they have great material wealth. ये कितनी डीप और प्रोफाउंड बात है कि जितना मर्जी मटेरियल वेल्थ हो अगर हमने कभी अपने इनर बीइंग को एक्सपीरियंस नहीं किया जो बिल्कुल साइलेंट है फुल ऑफ लव पीस ब्लिस अगर हमने कभी उसको एक्सपीरियंस नहीं किया है तो वी आर दोज बेगर्स they are looking outside for scraps of pleasure or fulfillment, for validation, security of or love, while they have a treasure within that not only includes all those things but is infinitely greater than anything the world can offer. तो ये भी कितना प्रोफाउंडली ऑथर ने समझाया है कि हम अगर हम अपने आप को केयरफुली ऑब्जर्व करें हम हर चीज बाहर ढूंढते हैं प्यार सिक्योरिटी वैलिडेशन सब चीज बाहर ढूंढते हैं जबकि वो सब हमारे अंदर ऑलरेडी है we just have to experience that treasure and it is not just a little bit it is infinitely greater देन कोई भी जो हमें दे उससे कहीं ज्यादा कंप्लीट है हम The word enlightenment conjures up the idea of some superhuman accomplishment, and the ego likes to keep it that way. तो ऑथर समझा रहे हैं कि एनलाइटनमेंट हम क्या सोचते हैं कि कोई समथिंग सुपर ह्यूमन है जो बड़े मुश्किल से हमें हम उसको एक्सपीरियंस कर पाएंगे। और जो ईगो है यहाँ पे, द ऑथर इज रिफरिंग टू आवर ईगो माइंड। द ईगो माइंड लाइक्स टू कीप इट दैट वे, but it is simply your natural state of felt oneness with being. तो वही ऑथर समझा रहे, it is simply our inner, our inner self, one with the being, being as in our soul. Another word for being is our soul. It is a state of connectedness with something immeasurable and indestructible, something that almost paradoxically is essentially you, and yet is much greater than you. तो वही ऑथर समझा रहे हैं कि इट इज अ स्टेट ऑफ कनेक्टेडनेस विद समथिंग दैट इज इमेजरेबल, जो इट्स बियॉन्ड बर्थ एंड डेथ। द सोल इज immortal, the soul never dies, so it is indestructible, immeasurable, and is essentially who we are. That is exactly who we are, and yet it is much greater than us. It is finding your true nature beyond name and form. That is what we truly are, beyond this name and form. The inability to feel this connectedness gives rise to the illusion of separation from yourself and from the world around you. तो जब तक हम ये कनेक्टेडनेस फील नहीं करते, जब तक हम इसको एक्सपीरियंस नहीं करते, हम इसी इल्यूजन में रहते हैं। हम जो जो बाहर की दुनिया है, इसी इल्यूजन में रहते हैं कि बाहर से हमें वैलिडेशन मिलेगा, बाहर से लव मिलेगा, तो ही हम खुश रहेंगे, क्योंकि हमने वो कभी अपने इनर सेल्फ को एक्सपीरियंस ही नहीं किया है। You then perceive yourself consciously or unconsciously as an isolated fragment. Fear arises and conflict within and without becomes the norm. Because, we are so dependent on the love from outside, from the validation, expectations, जो हम सारा टाइम बाहर ही देखते रहते हैं इन सब चीजों के लिए। तब फिर वो फियर अराइज होता है, वो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट, इनर कॉन्फ्लिक्ट बिल्डअप होता है जब हमें ये सब चीजें नहीं मिल रही होती। I love the Buddha's simple definition of enlightenment as the end of suffering. There is nothing superhuman in that, is there? Of course, as a definition, it is incomplete. Only tells you what enlightenment is not: no suffering. But what's left when there is no more suffering? तो वही ये ऑथर समझा रहे हैं कि जो बुद्धा का डेफिनेशन है, हाउ डज ही डिफाइन एनलाइटमेंट एज द एंड ऑफ सफरिंग। तो उसमें देयर इज नथिंग दैट इज सुपर ह्यूमन, उसमें कुछ कॉम्प्लेक्स नहीं है। बट उसके व्हाट इज बियॉन्ड दैट, वो तो खाली हमें यही समझा रहे हैं कि सफरिंग नहीं है। बट वॉट इज लेफ्ट व्हेन देयर इज नो मोर सफरिंग? द बुद्धा इज साइलेंट ऑन दैट, एंड हिज साइलेंस implies that you'll have to find out for yourself. He uses a negative definition so that the mind cannot make it into something to believe in or into a superhuman accomplishment, a goal that is impossible for you to attain. Despite this precaution, the majority of Buddhists still believe that enlightenment is for the Buddha, not for them, at least not in this lifetime. तो अभी सीकर कह रहे हैं कि you used the word being. Can you explain what you mean by that? तो सीकर ऑथर से पूछ रहे हैं कि what does the word being mean? उसका क्या मतलब है? So the author is explaining, being is the eternal, ever present one life beyond the myriad forms of life that are subject to birth and death. So being is eternal, ever present one life. So the being is the soul, the soul is immortal, it's ever present. It's not, it has nothing to do with birth and death. ठीक है? However, being is not only beyond, but also deep within every form as its innermost, invisible, and indestructible essence. So it is not something, It is beyond the human body also, but it is very deep within. It's मतलब it is invisible, दिखाई नहीं देता हमें, and indestructible essence. मतलब वो हर एक हम में present है. You know, our soul is present in each one of us, and it is, we can't see the soul, but it is immortal, and it is beyond life and death. Matlab, it has nothing to do with the cycle of life and death. This means that it is accessible to you now as your own deepest self, your true nature. मतलब ये हमारे साथ constantly, it is our true nature जो constantly हमारे अंदर present है. You don't seek to grasp it with your mind, but जो mind है वो it's like it is like a covering. वो mind हमें soul तक पहुंचने नहीं देता, because ego mind has a lot of बहुत सारी चीजें mind cover up कर देता है जो ego तक soul तक पहुंचने नहीं देता. Don't try to understand it. You can know it only when the mind is still. When you are present, when your attention is fully and intensely in the now, being can be felt, but it can never be understood mentally. To regain awareness of being and to abide in that state of feeling realization is enlightenment. तो जब हम ये ईगो माइंड के बियॉन्ड जाते हैं, जब हम ये क्वेश्चंस के बियॉन्ड जाते हैं, अंडरस्टैंडिंग, ईगो माइंड के अंडरस्टैंडिंग के बियॉन्ड जाते हैं, जब माइंड बिल्कुल स्टिल है, व्हेन देयर इज नो पास्ट नो फ्यूचर, जब बिल्कुल स्टिल, व्हेन देयर इज दैट नो माइंड जोन जहाँ पे कोई थॉट्स नहीं है, दैट इज व्हेन वी आर फुली प्रेजेंट, एंड दैट इज व्हेन वी कैन फील द awareness of the soul, of what we truly are. तो ये ऑथर समझा रहे कि दैट फीलिंग रियलाइजेशन इज एनलाइटमेंट. जब हमें वो फील रियलाइज करते हैं, हम जब हम बिल्कुल स्टिल होते हैं, बिल्कुल साइलेंट, जब माइंड में कोई पास्ट फ्यूचर नहीं है, जब व्हेन वी आर कंप्लीटली इन प्रेजेंट, दैट इज व्हेन वी रियलाइज द पावर ऑफ द सोल. So the seeker is asking, when you say being, are you talking about God? If you are, then why don't you say it? So the author is saying, the word God has become empty of meaning through thousands of years of misuse. I use it sometimes, but I do so sparingly. By misuse, I mean that people who have never even glimpsed the realm of the sacred, the infinite vastness behind that word, use it with great conviction as if they knew what they are talking about. Or they argue against it as if they knew what it is that they are denying. This misuse gives rise to absurd beliefs, assertions, and egoic delusions, such as my or our God is the only true God, and your God is false, or Nietzsche's famous statement, God is dead. तो वही वो ऑथर समझा रहे हैं कि द वर्ड गॉड बहुत मिसयूज हो गया है, बिकॉज अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल ने वो जो वो सोल की सोल कॉन्शियस नहीं है, लॉट ऑफ पीपल हैव नॉट एक्सपीरियंस्ड द बीइंग जो which is not our past, not our future. When we are completely in the present, that feeling of being connected to the supreme soul, वो a lot of people have not कभी experience ही नहीं किया. तो फिर वो बहुत मिसयूज करते हैं, जैसे बहुत सारे रिलीजन्स में कहते हैं ना, ये मेरा भगवान है, मेरा हमारा भगवान ही सही है, आपका सही नहीं है. तो ये सब तभी होता है जब वो एक्सपीरियंस ना किया हो. The word God has become a closed concept. The moment the word is uttered, a mental image is created, no longer perhaps of an old man with a white beard, but still a representation of someone or something outside you. And yes, most almost inevitably a male, someone or something. तो whenever जब भी the mind wants to visualize, तो जब भी हम गॉड के बारे में सोचते हैं, हम हम किसी को इमेजिन करने लगते हैं, मेंटल इमेज क्रिएट करते हैं, जैसे ऑफ एन ओल्ड मैन विद अ वाइट बियर्ड. बट ये भी क्या है? ये सब हमारी मेंटल ही रिप्रेजेंटेशन है, जो हम मेंटली बिल्डअप कर रहे हैं. हम कभी अपने अंदर हमने वो एक्सपीरियंस नहीं किया है. Neither God nor being nor any other word can define or explain the ineffable reality behind the word. So the only important question is whether the word is a help or a hindrance in enabling you to experience that toward which it points. Does it point beyond itself to to that transcendental reality, or does it lend itself too easily to becoming no more than an idea in your head that you believe in, a mental ideal? The word being explains nothing, but nor does God. Being, however, has the advantage that it is an open concept. It does not reduce the infinite invisible to a finite entity. It is impossible to form a mental image of it. Nobody can claim exclusive possession of being. It is your very essence, and it is immediately accessible to you as the feeling of your own presence. The realization I am that is prior to I am this or I am that. So it is only a small step from the word being to the experience of being. तो वही author समझा रहे कि being doesn't explain anything, but God word also doesn't explain, you know. But जब वो being हम experience करते हैं, that I am not this mind, not this body, not these thoughts, I'm just a soul, तो जैसे ऑथर ने कहा है, the realization I am, which is before I am this or I am that. I am a soul. I am not this name, this body, this form. सबसे पहले जो realization है कि I am a being. This is जैसे ऑथर ने कहा है, it's a small step. जब being से हम जब realize करते हैं कि this is me, not I, I'm just truly just a soul, just a being before anything else, before all these labels. That is when we experience. That's when we get an experience of the being. So, Seeker is asking, what is the greatest obstacle to experiencing this reality? The author is explaining identification with your mind. तो सबसे बड़ा ऑब्स्टिकल क्या है हमें एक्सपीरियंस करने के लिए कि हम we are a soul, we are a being. So when we identify ourselves with our mind, which causes thought to become compulsive, not to be able to stop thinking is a dreadful affliction. But we don't realize this because almost everybody is suffering from it. So it is considered normal. तो वही ऑथर कह रहे हैं कि यू नो सब हम वी आर ऑल सो आइडेंटिफाइड विद आवर माइंड दैट वी डोंट इवन रियलाइज इट, कि हमें पता ही नहीं चलता है कि हम इतने ज्यादा वो मेंटल चैटर के अंदर लॉस्ट हो गए हैं. दिस incessant mental noise prevents you from finding that realm of inner stillness that is inseparable from being. तो ये जो कांस्टेंट मेंटल नॉइज जो आ रही है, उसकी वजह से हम अपनी जो ट्रू सेल्फ है उसको कभी हम उसके वी कांट इवन गो नियर इट because we are constantly identifying ourselves with all this mental chatter that's going on in our mind. It also creates a false mind made self that casts a shadow of fear and suffering. We will look at all that in more detail later. The philosopher Descartes believed that he had found the most fundamental truth when he made his famous statement, I think, therefore I am. तो उन्होंने क्या बोला? मैं सोचता हूँ इसलिए मैं हूँ। दैट मीन्स जो मैं एग्जिस्ट इसलिए करता हूँ बिकॉज मैं सोचता हूँ। ठीक है, दैट वाज हिज थिंकिंग, दैट वाज हिज ट्रुथ अकॉर्डिंग टू हिम। ही हैड इन फैक्ट given expression to the most basic error to equate thinking with being and identity with thinking. तो उसने क्या किया? सबसे बेसिक एरर, ये सबसे बड़ी गलती की कि जो थिंकिंग है वो बीइंग के साथ एसोसिएट किया, यू नो एंड अपनी आइडेंटिटी थिंकिंग के साथ बनाई। The compulsive thinker, which means almost everyone, lives in a state of apparent separateness, in an insanely complex world of continuous problems and conflict, a world that reflects the ever increasing fragmentation of the mind. Enlightenment is a state of wholeness, of being at one and therefore at peace. At one with life in its manifested aspect, the world, as well as with your deepest self and life unmanifested, at one with being. तो यही ऑथर समझा रहे कि एनलाइटनमेंट क्या है? इट इज अ स्टेट ऑफ होलनेस, you know, at one and therefore at peace. At one with what? जो लाइफ मैनिफेस्टेड है, जो ये बाहर की दुनिया है, जो हम अपनी आंखों से देखते हैं, हमारी जो एवरीडे लाइफ है, whatever we see, the manifested aspect. And it is also with the it is at one with our deepest self as well, and with life unmanifested. What is life unmanifested is what we can't see with our physical eyes, जो हमें दिखता नहीं है. When we are at one with both, that is enlightenment. At one with being. Enlightenment is not only the end of suffering and of continuous conflict within and without, but also the end of the dreadful enslavement to incessant thinking. What an incredible liberation this is. तो वही ऑथर समझा रहे हैं कि it is not just the end of suffering, but it is also the end of the thinking, जो हमारी thought process है, जो हम constantly mind के साथ identified है. तो वही वो कह रहे हैं, कितना इट दिस इज सो एम्पावरिंग एंड सो लिबरेटिंग, जब हम ये रियलाइज करते हैं कि आई एम नॉट माई माइंड, आई एम नॉट ऑल दीज थॉट्स. दैट इज व्हाट एनलाइटमेंट इज. Identification with your mind creates an opaque screen of concepts, labels, images, words, judgments, and definitions that blocks all true relationship. It comes between you and yourself, between you and your fellow man and woman, between you and your nature, between you and God. तो जो हम ये कॉन्स्टेंटली अपने माइंड के साथ आइडेंटिफाइड है, उससे हम ये इमेजेस, वर्ड्स, जजमेंट्स, ये सब हमारे माइंड क्रिएटेड ही होते हैं. तो यही एक ब्लॉकेज होती है बिटवीन यू नो बिटवीन आर सोल एंड अस. द माइंड इज द ब्लॉकेज. तो वही ऑथर कह रहे हैं कि इट इज द ब्लॉकेज बिटवीन यू एंड अदर्स, जो आपके रिलेशनशिप्स है, बिटवीन यू एंड नेचर, and most importantly, between you and God. It is this screen of thought that creates the illusion of separateness, the illusion that there is you and a totally separate other. You then forget the essential fact that underneath the level of physical appearances and separate forms, you are one with all that is. By forget, I mean that you can no longer feel this oneness as self-evident reality. You may believe it to be true, but you no longer know it to be true. A belief may be comforting only through your experience. However, only through your own experience, however, does it become liberating. तो ये जो आइडेंटिफिकेशन ऑफ माइंड है, ये ही हमें सोल कॉन्शियस नहीं होने देती। इसी यही एक रुकावट होती है, दैट वी डोंट नो, वी आर नॉट अवेयर ऑफ हु वी एक्चुअली आर। तो ये हम it makes us forget that we no longer feel the oneness जो manifested और unmanifested है। उसमें जो oneness है, we don't know, मतलब भी हमें पता है कि none of this is real, we know it but we don't experience it. Thinking has become a disease. Disease happens when things get out of balance. For example, there is nothing wrong with cells dividing and multiplying in the body, but when this process continues in disregard of the total organism, cells proliferate and we have disease. तो वही ऑथर समझा रहे हैं कि अभी थिंकिंग एक डिजीज बन चुका है, क्योंकि सारा टाइम हमारे माइंड में जो ये थॉट्स चलते रहते हैं नेगेटिव, और हम उसको ऑब्जर्व नहीं कर पाते। तो वो कहते देयर इज नथिंग रॉन्ग इन थिंकिंग, बट व्हेन वी आर नॉट एबल टू आइडेंटिफाई इट, then that starts becoming a problem when we are totally unaware. Note, the mind is a superb instrument if used rightly. Used wrongly, however, it becomes very destructive. To put it more accurately, it is not so much that you use your mind wrongly, you usually don't use it at all. It uses you. ये बहुत important है ये understand करना कि it's not that the mind, we use our mind wrongly. We are not using it. It is using us. This is the disease. Because we are so identified with our mind कि जो भी mind illusions create करता है, हमें वही सच लगता है. You believe that you are your mind. This is the delusion. The instrument has taken you over. तो ये बहुत profound है, ये लाइन को अंडरलाइन करना और अंडरस्टैंड करना कि हम माइंड को यूज नहीं कर रहे, वो हमें यूज कर रहा है। जो ये कांस्टेंट नेगेटिव थॉट्स चलते हैं, जिस जो भी इल्यूजन्स माइंड में क्रिएट होते हैं, हम उससे आइडेंटिफाई करते हैं, तो द माइंड इज यूजिंग अस। एंड वही जैसे ऑथर ने कहा कि इफ वी यूज इट करेक्टली, इट्स अ सुपर्ब इंस्ट्रूमेंट, बट इफ वी डोंट, इट बिकम्स वेरी डिस्ट्रक्टिव। तो सीकर कह रहा है, आई डोंट क्वाइट अग्री. इट इज ट्रू दैट आई डू अ लॉट ऑफ एमलेस थिंकिंग like most people, but I can still choose to use my mind to get and accomplish things, and I do that all the time. तो ऑथर समझा रहे, just because you can solve a crossword puzzle or build an atom bomb doesn't mean that you use your mind. Just as dogs love to chew bones, the mind loves to get its teeth into problems. That's why it does crossword puzzles and builds atom bombs. You have no interest in either. Let me ask you this. Can you be free of your mind whenever you want to? Have you found the off button? तो सीकर पूछ रहा है, you mean stop thinking altogether? No, I can't, except maybe for a moment or two. The author is saying, then the mind is using you. You are unconsciously identified with it, so you don't even know that you are its slave. मतलब हम जो माइंड की जो नेगेटिव जो भी थिंकिंग पैटर्न्स हैं, उसमें इतने आइडेंटिफाई हो गए कि हमें खुद को अवेयरनेस नहीं है इस बात की। और जैसे ऑथर ने पहले भी कहा कि द माइंड लव्स टू गेट इट्स टीथ इनटू प्रॉब्लम्स। मतलब माइंड को बहुत अच्छा लगता है कि हमेशा नेगेटिव रहना, हमेशा दुखी रहना। द माइंड इज कॉन्स्टेंटली लुकिंग फॉर negatives. It's almost as if you were possessed without knowing it, and so you take the possessing entity to be yourself. क्योंकि हमें पता ही नहीं है कि हम इतने ज्यादा, हमें माइंड ने पोजेस किया है कि हम उसके अंदर इतने ज्यादा इन्वॉल्व हो गए हैं। The beginning of freedom is the realization that you are not the possessing entity, the thinker. I am not this mind. ये रियलाइज करना बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है कि मैं ये हुई नहीं, ये थॉट्स जो भी माइंड में चल रहा है, दिस इज नॉट मी. Knowing this enables you to observe the entity. The moment you start watching the thinker, a higher level of consciousness becomes activated. तो ये भी बहुत important है कि जब हम माइंड के थॉट्स को ऑब्जर्व करने लगते हैं, when we become the observer, then a higher level of consciousness becomes activated. You then begin to realize that there is a vast stream of intelligence beyond thought. That thought is only a tiny aspect of that intelligence. You also realize that all the things that truly matter, beauty, love, creativity, joy, inner peace, arise from beyond the mind. You begin to awaken. Wow, that's so profound, the way the author is explaining. So today I think we'll finish over here today. So tomorrow we'll start from freeing yourself from your mind. Okay. So, uh, हमने questions prepared किए हैं according, based on the reading of today's session. तो मैं आपके साथ share करती हूँ the questions. I'll just read them and then we'll post them on the description, in the description box as well. Okay, so this is to, deeper the understanding. जो भी आज हमने पढ़ा है, उसको और समझने के लिए हमने ये questions तैयार किए हैं. So the first question is, what do you think about the title and subtitle of this book? Okay, what do you think about the title and subtitle of this book? The second question is, what in this section resonates most with you? आज जो भी हमने सेशन में किया उसमें सबसे ज्यादा क्या रेजोनेट किया आपके साथ, आपने किस चीज के साथ सबसे ज्यादा रिलेट किया? एंड द थर्ड क्वेश्चन, व्हाट वाज योर इनिशियल रिएक्शन टू टोले's premise that living fully in the present moment is the key to personal enlightenment? तो आपका सबसे पहला रिएक्शन क्या था ये सुन के कि प्रेजेंट में रहना इज द की टू एनलाइटनमेंट? Did you find this concept challenging, comforting, or something else? तो आपको कैसे लगा, ये सुन के? क्या आपको ये चैलेंजिंग फील हो रहा है, कंफर्टिंग फील हो रहा है? और मतलब क्या है आपकी थिंकिंग इस बारे में? तो ये तीन क्वेश्चंस हमने, बेस्ड ऑन टुडेज सेशन. तो we have a WhatsApp group as well. So the group link is shared in the description. And I'll share these questions as well. So you can answer, you can either join our WhatsApp group, आप ज्वाइन कर सकते हैं, या तो आप कमेंट्स में भी आंसर कर सकते हैं. So this will really help you, understand. Uh, you मतलब आप आपकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग को डीपन करने में बहुत हेल्प करेंगे ये क्वेश्चंस. So thank you so much for joining today's session, and we'll see you tomorrow again.